Damn it, get away from the boy right now. The words exploded from Maya Williams's throat before she even realized she was running. 3 boys, maybe 11 or 12, all wearing the school's navy and gold blazer, stood over him, laughing. One held Liam's backpack like a trophy. Another had just kicked his fallen crutch aside. The third tallest, meanest, with slick back hair and the casual cruelty only money can breed, grinned at Maya like this was all a joke. "Lady, this ain't your business," he said. "Who the hell is that?" one boy muttered. "What's the maid doing here?" One boy raised his arm, hand balled into a fist. Another was mid-laugh, clearly preparing to land another shove. Without hesitation, Maya surged forward, crossing the room in a blur of righteous fury. Her heart pounded, breath shallow, but her body moved with a terrifying precision. Fueled by instinct and memory, Maya's body crashed into the scene just in time. She twisted midair, throwing herself between the boy's foot and Liam's stomach. The boot caught her square in the ribs. The pain seared through her, sharp and immediate, but Liam didn't cry out. Because she took the blow, the cafeteria gasped again. One of the boys, tall, golden-haired, with a perfect smirk and a last name on a private building, spat at her feet. "Stupid maid. What, you think you're a damn superhero now?" Another boy barked a laugh. "Yeah, go clean something, freak." "Ma, I defended a disabled child." Maya snapped back. "You just wait when my dad sees this." Before he could finish, the boy lunged forward, shoving her. Maya moved on instinct. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Never throw the first punch, baby. But if they come at you, protect your center, control the momentum, and always leave room to breathe." She pivoted her weight, sidestepped, and deflected the boy's charge. He lost balance and tripped over the dropped crutch. His head hit the edge of the cafeteria table on the way down. Blood gushed from his nose. The cafeteria erupted. Screams, cell phones, gasps. Maya blinked, realizing what she'd just done. Shit, she hadn't meant to hurt him. She was only protecting Liam. Her heart thundered, breath shallow. "She attacked us," the tall boy shouted suddenly, looking around as adults began to approach. "She assaulted a student. Someone get the principal." Security guards rushed in, followed by 2 teachers and the school's vice principal, a pale, thin-lipped woman in a pencil skirt and forced composure. "What the hell is going on?" the vice principal snapped. The boys chorused their lines instantly. "She attacked us. She hurt Jason." She barged in screaming like a maniac. All eyes turned to Maya. Her hands were still raised, the way her father taught her, palms out, fingers wide. Show no threat, no weapon. But it didn't matter. The image had been burned into everyone's mind already. Black woman, angry, loud, surrounded by privileged, injured boys. "I was bringing lunch," Maya said, voice cracking. "Liam, he's hurt. They were hitting him." Before we continue, if you find this story interesting, make sure to subscribe. It really encourages us to keep bringing you more. "You're not authorized to enter the lunchroom without escort," the vice principal snapped. No one was helping him. "There's no excuse for physical violence," the woman said coldly. "He was going to be knocked unconscious." "I'll ask you one last time to stand down, Miss Williams," said one of the guards, now approaching her. "Hands behind your back." "What?" Maya blinked. "I didn't know." But the cuffs were already out. Maya felt the bottom drop out from under her. She backed away slowly as Liam tried to rise to his feet. "Don't take her," he whispered. She didn't. But Liam couldn't speak. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. As they pulled her away, Maya's mind wasn't on her job, or Edward Blake, or the cell phones still filming. She thought of her father. She was 14 again, barefoot in their tiny backyard in Baltimore, the smell of fried catfish from the kitchen window. Her father's voice in her ear, steady, kind, and firm. "Baby, if you ever have to use your fists, make damn sure it's not pride swinging but love." Another memory. You don't learn to fight to win. You learn to fight so the ones who can't don't have to. The cop car was cold. Her wrists ached from the cuffs, and her stomach churned from the blow she took. But the worst pain came from knowing what Liam must be thinking, that she walked away again, that maybe she'd abandoned him, that maybe the world had silenced the only voice that had ever told him, "You're safe now." And all she had done, was protect him. If you felt Maya's courage in this moment, hit like and comment where you're watching from, because someone nearby might be watching this story with you too. The holding cell was cold, quiet, gray. Maya sat on the metal bench, the bruised shoulder pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her palms still smelled faintly of cafeteria, food, and sanitizer. Her mind replayed it all, Liam's eyes wide in fear, the moment her body took the blow, the taste of adrenaline when she'd seen blood, not Liam's, thank God. She closed her eyes. Her father's voice came again, clear and warm from another time back in that tiny backyard in Baltimore, where he taught her to spar using broomsticks and boxing gloves. People think fighting's about strength, but it's about clarity. Know what you're protecting, and never let them tell you that protecting is the same as attacking. She breathed in slowly. A part of her wanted to cry. Not because she was arrested, not because she might lose her job, but because Liam had looked at her right before they took her, and his lips had moved. She hadn't heard what he said through the shouting, but she'd seen his eyes. They weren't afraid of her. They were afraid of being alone again. She leaned her head against the wall, whispering, "Hold on, baby. I'm not leaving you. Not for long." Edward Blake stood motionless in the pristine hallway of Riverview Prep, his eyes fixed on the blood-red emergency sign above the nurse's office. His coat hung heavy on his shoulders, a perfect navy match for the tailored suit beneath. Everything about him was immaculate except his expression. That was crumbling by the second. He hadn't even taken off his gloves. The call had come 30 minutes earlier. "Mr. Blake, there's been an incident involving Liam. He's not badly hurt, but we need you here immediately." Edward had dropped everything, canceled a boardroom meeting, snapped at his driver to double the speed. But now that he was here, something felt off. The principal's vague explanations. The security guard's awkward glances. And that name, Maya. He stepped through the door. Liam sat on a cot, legs dangling over the edge, his body curled slightly. His blonde hair was mussed, his glasses smudged, and a red patch puffed beneath his lower lip. One of the nurses was still icing his ribs. Edward crossed the room swiftly. "Liam." His voice, usually clipped and cool, softened slightly. "Talk to me. Are you in pain?" Liam shook his head. The nurse stepped aside. "No fractures, some bruising and swelling. He's lucky someone intervened when they did." Edward's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, Principal Ross entered, followed by Mr. Delacroix and a security officer. "Mr. Blake," Ross began, tone-coded in damage control. "We're investigating an incident that occurred in the cafeteria. It appears your son was involved in a physical altercation." "With who?" "3 older students. But Miss Maya Williams, your household staff, was also involved." Edward stiffened. "Maya?" "She was seen physically engaging with the students. One of them, Jack Simmons, sustained a minor head injury. There are video recordings from various angles. Based on what we saw, and with the current liability concerns, the police were contacted." Edward's jaw tightened. "Let me get this straight. My son was attacked. Maya stepped in, and you arrested her?" "There are conflicting accounts, sir," Ross replied, eyes shifting nervously. "The footage is incomplete, and the boys claim she struck them first." "Where's Liam's statement?" Edward asked. Liam didn't speak. He looked down at his hands, picking at the hem of his school sweater. Edward turned toward him. "Liam, tell me what happened." Liam hesitated, then whispered, "They pushed me, called me cripple. Maya stopped them. One of them tried to hit me. She blocked it." The room fell silent. Ross cleared his throat. "Unfortunately, Mr. Blake, that version doesn't align with the footage currently circulating." Edward straightened. "And what do you believe happened?" The principal avoided his gaze. "We're simply taking precautions." Edward turned to the security guard. "Where is Maya now?" "Detained. County precinct. Standard protocol," he said, almost apologetically. Edward exhaled, eyes narrowing. "You allowed her to be arrested in front of students? In front of my son?" "She struck a student," Ross said quickly. "Whatever the intent was, we can't ignore injury. She protected Liam." Edward's voice was lower now, measured and icy. "She's worked in my home for over a year. She cooks for my son, reads to him at night, knows his medication routine better than I do. And you let her walk out in cuffs while those little monsters walk free?" The room felt 10 degrees colder. Mr. Delacroix muttered something under his breath and left the room. Edward looked at Liam again. His son looked so small, so still, so unlike the boy he wanted to believe was healing. His chest rose and fell steadily, but the color in his face had drained. "I want to take him home," Edward said. The nurse nodded. "He's clear to leave. Just rest and ice." Edward turned back to Principal Ross. "And Maya? I believe charges are being filed. Possibly endangerment. We'll keep you updated." "May?" Edward didn't reply. He lifted Liam gently off the cot and carried him out the door. In the back seat of the car, Liam sat in silence, his eyes staring out the window as the school drifted farther behind them. Edward glanced at him in the mirror, trying to find the right words, but nothing felt right. "She didn't mean to hurt anyone," Liam said softly, still staring forward. "I know," Edward replied after a moment. "Then why did they take her?" Edward didn't answer. He turned back to the road. That evening, after Liam had fallen asleep on the couch wrapped in his fleece blanket, Edward poured himself a glass of scotch. He stood by the window of his study, looking out at the city skyline as dusk settled in. Everything outside looked orderly, controlled, but his mind wasn't. He replayed the image of Maya being led away in cuffs. She hadn't even fought it. No yelling, no resistance, just a long look in Liam's direction before she disappeared beyond the doors. He had seen that look once before on the day she was hired, when she first saw Liam limp across the room and had instinctively moved to kneel in front of him. "Do you need a hand, baby?" she had asked. Edward hadn't liked how fast Liam responded to her. He didn't like how quickly Maya had blended into the house, into his routines, into places Edward himself had slowly vacated since his wife passed away. But he had tolerated it, because Liam had needed her. Now she was gone, and something inside him said the school had gotten it wrong. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in a while. "Detective Moreno," a voice answered. "This is Edward Blake. I need a favor." "Is this about the incident at Riverview?" "Yes. What do you want to know?" "Everything, and I want to see the full footage." There was a pause. "I can make that happen." "No." Edward hung up and stood in the silence. For the first time in years, he didn't feel in control. He just felt wrong. The lights in the holding cell flickered with a dull hum, cold, harsh, sterile. Maya Williams sat on the edge of the metal bench, her back straight, hands folded in her lap. She refused to let herself slouch, even as the concrete walls around her threatened to close in. Her shoulder still ached from the blow she'd taken in the cafeteria, and her palms bore faint scrapes from the fall, but the pain wasn't what consumed her. It was the silence, the kind of silence that follows injustice. She had replayed it a dozen times already. The boys jeering. Liam frozen in fear. The punch. Her body moving before her mind even registered. The shove. The stumble. The blood. Then the lies. So fast. So rehearsed. "She attacked us. She's insane. She hit me for no reason. They didn't even hesitate." If you're still here and enjoying the story, we'd love your support. Take a second to hit subscribe. It really means a lot. She rubbed the cuffs of her sleeves, fingers brushing the rough skin beneath. They'd taken her shoelaces, her bag, even the note Liam had once written her last Christmas. To Maya, "Thank you for making the pancakes not burn." Now, they'd taken her dignity too, at least that's what they thought. A clang echoed from the corridor beyond the bars. Footsteps, keys jingling. A uniformed officer appeared and gave her a nod. "You've got a visitor." She didn't move. "Lawyer?" "Nope, someone from your household, I think." Maya's stomach twisted. Was it Edward? She stood slowly, back still rigid, refusing to let even the ache in her bones show. They led her to a private interview room, a steel table, 2 metal chairs, a single camera bulb blinking red in the corner. She didn't have to wait long. The door opened. Not Edward Blake, but someone she hadn't expected at all, his assistant, Trina Holloway. Polished, sharp, eyes that always looked past Maya like she was furniture. But now Trina sat down across from her with an expression Maya couldn't read. "Don't say anything that can be used against you," Trina said first, voice low. Maya raised an eyebrow. "I thought you weren't a fan of me." "I'm not, but I am a fan of truth. and something about this smells wrong. Maya folded her arms. Nice of someone to notice. Trina slid a folder across the table. Inside, printouts of security stills. Blurry shots. Maya's outstretched arms. Liam behind her. One frame looked like she was pushing the tall boy. Out of context, Maya said. Exactly. And this is what's circulating. Of course it is. Trina hesitated. Then softer. Edward's looking into it. Maya almost scoffed. Now he is. He's talking to detectives. He's asked for uncut footage. Let me guess, after seeing my mugshot? Trina's expression didn't change. But something behind her eyes did. Regret, maybe. Or understanding. They're not pressing formal charges yet, she said. You're being held for questioning, but we're trying to push for release before arraignment. Maya leaned back. He might not say it, but Edward trusts you with Liam more than he trusts anyone. That didn't stop him from letting me get dragged out like a criminal in front of the whole school. Trina didn't argue. She couldn't. Maya looked away, eyes drifting to the two-way mirror across the room. Somewhere behind it, she imagined cold suits and colder gazes watching her, waiting for her to break. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. After a pause, she said quietly, "My dad used to say pain don't kill you, how you carry it does." Trina looked up. "Your dad teach you to block a punch like that?" Maya smiled faintly. "He taught me how to get hit without falling apart." After the interview, she was led back to the holding cell. Still no lawyer. Still no apology. But she noticed something different. The officers no longer avoided her gaze. One even handed her a cup of lukewarm coffee with a nod. The tides were turning. Slowly, she sat back down on the bench, closing her eyes. And like a wave, the memory of her father came again. Baltimore, summer dusk, the smell of fried fish from Mrs. Jenkins's porch next door. She was 10, fists taped up with duct tape because they couldn't afford gloves. Her father, a broad-shouldered man with a heart big enough to carry every injustice he'd faced, knelt beside her on the cracked pavement. "You don't fight to win, baby girl. You fight to protect, even if no one thanks you, even if they blame you." She'd nodded, tears stinging her eyes. "But what if they hate me for it? Then you hold your head higher." She opened her eyes. Outside the barred window, dawn was beginning to bleed into the sky. Soft gray turned to lavender. Sooner or later, the truth would come out. And when it did, she'd still be standing. Meanwhile, in Edward Blake's penthouse, the lights were still on. The living room was dark, but the blue glow of the paused security footage flickered on his laptop screen. Frame by frame, he watched it again. Liam cornered. The raised fist. Maya diving in front. The shove. The trip. The fall. He froze the moment where Maya caught the punch meant for his son. His jaw tightened. Behind him, Liam stood barefoot in pajamas, clutching a blanket. "Daddy?" Edward turned. "You should be asleep." "I couldn't." He hesitated, then waved him over. Liam climbed onto the couch beside him. "Why are you watching that? I need to understand what happened." Liam looked at the screen. "She saved me." Edward nodded. "I know." "Ezza." "Then why did they take her away?" Edward looked down at his son, then at the paused image of Maya, mid-motion, eyes wide, body tense, arms shielding Liam. He didn't answer, but inside, something shifted. Not just guilt, conviction. The glass doors of the Riverview Police Precinct slid open at precisely 9:02 a.m. A stream of attorneys and officials passed through the front lobby, briefcases and heels tapping against the marble floor like a metronome of privilege. But the woman walking through the doors now didn't wear privilege. She wore truth and bruises hidden under her coat. Maya Williams stepped out slowly, 1 foot at a time. The sunlight hitting her face like a surprise. It had been less than 24 hours, but it felt longer. She hadn't slept, had barely eaten. Her shoulders still throbbed, and her body moved stiffly from the cold steel bench she'd sat on all night. But she was free. For now. "Miss Williams," came a voice. Detective Daniel Moreno. Latino. Mid-40s. Broad chest under a cheap department suit. A reputation for patience and for calling things like they were. "We're not done," he said, tone neutral but not unfriendly. "But there's no formal arraignment yet. They'll need more before they press charges." Maya looked at him, her voice calm but pointed. "So I can be arrested and smeared publicly, But not officially charged? Moreno sighed. Welcome to the gray area of the law. She adjusted her coat. I want to give my full statement. You will. Soon. But right now go home. Rest. The media's already poking around, and if I were you, I'd stay out of the spotlight until the air clears. Maya looked him in the eyes. I'm not hiding. I didn't do anything wrong. A brief pause. Then, a nod. Didn't say you did. He handed her a business card. If anyone calls, or if those boys' parents try to reach you, don't engage. You talk to me. Maya slipped the card into her coat pocket. I need to check on Liam, she said. Good luck with that, Moreno replied. The Blake estate's a fortress, and I doubt he's taking visitors. 30 minutes later, Maya stood outside the security gate of the Blake residence in Upper Falls. She knew every brick, every tree along the long driveway, every angle of the ivy that curled up the side of the garage, the place she'd helped keep warm, the place that had felt like something close to home for Liam, and maybe even for her. The intercom buzzed. State your name. It's Maya. Maya Williams. Pause. Static. I just need to check on Liam. I brought his weighted blanket, he sleeps better with it. Another pause. The gate didn't open. I'll leave it by the mailbox, she said, voice catching slightly. Tell him Maya brought it. She placed the folded gray blanket frayed at the edges, patched by hand gently at the gate's base, then turned and walked away without looking back. Inside the estate, Edward Blake watched from the upstairs study, blinds half closed. She's gone, the housekeeper said gently. He didn't answer. She left Liam's blanket. Still no reply. She didn't look angry. Edward finally turned from the window. She should be, he said. Later that evening, Edward sat alone in the den, watching the footage again. This time it was the full video, stitched from 2 different security angles. Moreno had emailed it earlier with a brief note. You'll want to see minute 2:41. Had did. At 2:41, you saw the punch coming. You saw Maya take it. You saw the boys' expressions change, not fear, not remorse, just calculation. You saw how one of them faked a limp, how the other yelled on cue. It was a performance, and Maya had been their scapegoat. Edward leaned back, his face grim. His fingers tapped the glass of scotch he hadn't touched. He had judged too quickly. Again, it was a habit of his. Decisions made clean, fast, surgical. That's what had made him a billionaire. That's what had broken his marriage. That's what had put a wall between him and his son. He heard a soft knock. Liam, still in pajamas. Blanket dragging behind him. Did Maya come back? Edward cleared his throat. Not yet. Liam climbed onto the couch. She's not mad, you know. Edward looked at him. You don't think so? No. She gets quiet when she's mad. And when she's really mad, she doesn't talk at all. But she talked at the school. She yelled. Edward raised an eyebrow. She did? Yeah, she said. Get away from the boy. Loud, like a superhero. Edward smiled faintly. Then it faded. Do you want her back? He asked. Liam didn't even hesitate. She's the only one who sees me. The words hit deeper than Edward expected. He glanced down at his phone. A missed call from Trina. 2 news alerts about the Blake school incident. A private message from a former board member that simply read, Hope the rumors aren't true. The storm was gathering. He stood. Come on, you should sleep. Will she come back tomorrow? Edward paused, then nodded. I'll make sure of it. That same night, across town in her small 2-bedroom apartment, Maya sat at her kitchen table, still in the same coat. She held the note she'd once found in Liam's backpack, scribbled in shaky crayon. You are safe when you are here. Ob. She stared at the words. The same phrase her father used to whisper to her after Mom died. The same words Maya had wanted to believe for herself. She placed the note on the table, smoothed it gently, and whispered to no one, I'm not done with you, baby. Not even close. The next morning arrived like a whisper-gray cloud stretching thin across the sky. The city below them just beginning to stir. Maya stood by her kitchen window, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee. She hadn't slept. Her bruised shoulder was tighter than yesterday, but the pain had dulled, replaced by something more urgent, clarity. She was no longer angry. She was focused. She placed her mug down, went to her closet, and pulled out a small cardboard box. Inside, a faded folder. A copy of her old nursing school application, and 2 recommendation letters she'd never sent. She pulled out the letter her father wrote before he passed, creased from years of rereading. You don't need a degree to do what's right, but if the world won't hear your truth, sometimes you need their papers to make them listen. She folded the letter and tucked it in her coat. It was time to fight back with facts, not fists. Across the city, Edward Blake sat stiffly at a round mahogany table inside his lawyer's office. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over a perfectly composed skyline, but the room felt colder than any boardroom he'd ever conquered. Trina sat beside him, her tablet open. On the opposite end of the table, a middle-aged woman in pearls, a lawyer representing one of the boys Maya had supposedly attacked, stared Edward down like he was already guilty. The Simmons family is demanding compensation, she said plainly. Hospital bills, emotional trauma, reputation harm. They're prepared to go to the media. They're already in talks with 2 online platforms. Edward tapped his finger against the armrest. And they're blaming a woman who took a punch for my son? They're calling it reckless endangerment. He glanced at Trina. We have footage, and we've made contact with Detective Moreno, she said. But if you want this to go away quietly, they're pushing for a payout and a statement of fault. And what do you recommend? Edward asked, turning to the lawyer. The woman hesitated. If you want to protect your son's privacy and your company's reputation, paying might be cleaner. No. Edward stood abruptly. I'll make my own statement. He walked out before they could stop him. At a nearby coffee shop, Maya sat across from Detective Moreno, a tape recorder between them. She gave her statement calmly, clearly, her hands folded in her lap. She recounted every detail, the shouting, the swing, the moment she shielded Liam, how she reacted on reflex. Moreno listened, occasionally jotting notes. You're composed, he said at one point. I've had to be, Maya replied. Can I ask you something off record? She nodded. Why didn't you fight harder when they arrested you? She looked out the window. Because Liam was watching. And sometimes, strength is not about raising your voice. It's about holding your ground without losing who you are. He didn't write that down, but he nodded once. When the interview ended, he said quietly, footage supports you. And we're re-interviewing the boys with legal supervision. Will it be enough? Moreno looked tired. If truth still counts, yes. By noon, Edward Blake stood before a podium outside his company's headquarters. A row of reporters flanked him, cameras pointed, mics held up like drawn weapons. He adjusted the cuffs of his jacket and spoke into the cluster of microphones. My name is Edward Blake. I am CEO of Blake Systems. I am also a father. And this week, my son was attacked in a school where he was supposed to be safe. Flashes, murmurs. But someone stood between him and harm. Someone who didn't have to. Someone the system punished instead of praised. More flashes. Maya Williams has worked in my home for over a year. She has cared for my son, helped him regain trust in people, and created stability when I myself was falling short. On the day in question, she took a blow meant for my child, and then she was handcuffed. The crowd quieted. I failed her in that moment, and I won't do it again. A few flashes stuttered. A reporter's pen paused mid-scribble. Edward leaned closer to the mic. To Maya Williams, I apologize, publicly and personally. And to those who think money replaces justice, I'm here to say, not this time. I will be pursuing disciplinary action against the students involved, as well as accountability from the school for failing to act when my son was targeted. A ripple moved through the press corps. Edward stepped back from the podium. He didn't take questions. That afternoon, Maya's phone buzzed. Trina, the press conference, she said simply. I saw it, Maya replied. He means it. I'm not ready to forgive him. No one's asking you to, but Liam is asking for you. Maya was silent. Then, tell him I'll come. For Liam. As the sun dipped low, Maya stood once again before the gate of the Blake estate. This time, it opened. Inside, the house looked the same. But something in the air had shifted. The silence that once felt icy now felt reverent. Like a pause before something sacred. Liam ran to her as soon as she stepped inside. She crouched, arms wide. I missed you, he whispered into her neck. I missed you more, baby. From the staircase above, Edward watched quietly, guilt etched into his face. He didn't interrupt. Not yet. Not until Maya stood, her eyes meeting his across the room. There was no warmth there, not yet, but there was something better. Resolution. The next morning, Maya stood in the kitchen of the Blake estate. If you enjoyed this story and want to know what happened next, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment, Maid Confront. I'll be sharing the second part soon, and trust me, what happens next will leave you speechless.